build my gallows and build them high. Makes a long time climbing before I die. I want the chance.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Long Bangers Thursday phone in. I'm Matty as always, and we'll get stuck right into it. Joe, you were first on tonight. Where do you want to kick us off?
I think I'd like to kick us off with the team that's been losing so many goals all season, and what we need to do with the shape of the team to change that. That's where I'd be starting off, because we can't. Every single game, we're losing bloody goals. I mean, okay, 3 was bad, but I mean, every single game we're losing goals. Why, and what can we do with the personnel we've got to help improve that?
What do you think the issue is?
Well, I think, as was mentioned in our last podcast, and you guys mentioned at the weekend, most of the team haven't been in top form this season.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we had a reasonable run in Europe, but if you think about it, you know, we've not been in great form this season at all. And I don't know whether that's because David Gray's tweaked the format a wee bit, but I mean, it must be something else where so many players are maybe getting 5 or 6 out of 10 instead of 7 or 8 out of 10. I mean, that small difference can make a big difference, as we know. And apart from the second half in Warsaw, we've seen very few 5-star performances. And I don't know whether that's partly because the players are asked to play to this tweaked formation that Gray seems to be doing. And I personally think, especially we've got 3 big away games back to back, you know, Rangers, Celtic and Hearts. I think we should, especially with the personnel we've got available, I think we should consider going forward to the back. You might all shout me down about that, but at least it'll stop the rot. If you played Hanley and Rocky in the middle, Avita one side, and I'm not sure who you'd play right wing back because I right of back forward. But basically, I think we should do that. And obviously, we've been losing the balls in midfield. I think Chegwa coming back into the team at the weekend will make a huge difference. He's the old-fashioned ball winner in the midfield that every team needs. And, you know, Triantis played that role to a certain extent last season. So that's my initial thoughts, guys.
How much of an impact, Joe, do you think it is with Triantis being missing? Because he protected the back line a fair bit last season. He
did, and we've not had that protection. But we've seen enough in the short 2.5 games or 1 game and 2 halves that Chegwa's played. I think he can play that role as the midfield destroyer. Ian will be old enough to remember the role that Des Bremner played for Hibs, and then he went on to play in that Aston Villa team that won the European Cup, playing that midfield sort of destroyer role. And we need somebody like that, the ball winner in midfield, rather than the sulky passing and all the rest of it. You still need a gutsy ball winner. So I think Chegwa is the man for that.
Okay, well, we've got. I'll get some comments from YouTube, and then John, I'll bring you in and get your thoughts on Joe's point there. So me said Barlaser, Miguel, and Hanley must start Saturday. Too many goals were letting in. Sandy said, "Evening, guys. Looking forward to doing the Rangers." Green Tea said, "Evening, guys." Michael said, "Surely Hanley gets a start against Rangers." And Kenny says, "Evening all. Hanley, Chaiwa, and Clegy have to start." And apologies for the background noise there. The TV just got switched on inadvertently. John, what do you put the leaky defence down to?
I think I put it down to us trying to score goals at the other end at the moment. I think I was trying to work out how close this is to the 13 weeks under Neil Lennon feeling. I mean, when we had 5-3 home wins against Kelly, I mean, the team then was set up to score. They had a couple up top that were putting balls in the back of the net, but we were still losing too many. I mean, and that's where I'm probably heading towards. I would like us to have, if I look at the 3 home games, Kilmarnock's a disappointment. 2-0 up, cruise in, and we let 2 points go. That Dundee United team we played on Sunday is 5 or 6 times better than the Dundee United team we played last season. I mean, and they're probably the best team, best of the 3 teams that we played at home from the league this season. I mean, so it's that was 2 teams just going for it in that sense. If we decide to to close up ranks, then we'll lose something at the top of the pitch. And I think that's where it's trying to find that balance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I think that's where it is. I mean, if we go to the choice of left back tells us all about what Gray's doing on the day. Whether he's got a beater there or whether he's got Nicky Cadden out there. That's the thing that we all have that marker down in terms of, are we playing flat five at the back to cut out all the space, or are we trying to bomb on? I think that's the difference. It's just getting that balance. I'm no idea as to who the best players to put in midfield are at the moment. There's so many names. There's so many players that I've not seen enough of.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many players that I want to project how I think they're going to play. To think in terms of bar laser, you know what I mean? In terms of how he's going to be sort of that winning the ball and pinging it about, or is he? You know what I mean? We've seen Manny's come in and done that. Chai was there. I mean, I don't know. That's the problem looking from the outside. But why are we losing so many goals? Because we're trying to score them.
It's certainly borne out in the stats. I think the Observer did a piece on that at the start of the week about, I think Hibs topped the table maybe for expected goals, chances created, that kind of thing. Aye, and although we're not bottom of the table for chances conceded, we're not great. I think we're about mid-table for that. So it definitely would indicate that there's a team that's focused on attacking and less so on defending.
I mean, I think that the one I think we can look to Boyle being through 1-on-1 early in the game, and it's a fairly weak shot. Bowie gets a free header 7 yards out and puts it 4 yards past the post. I mean, these are the ones where we probably need to be taken. But in fairness, their guy's 1-on-1 with Smith at the end of the game, and if he hits the shot that was hit 15 minutes earlier into the top corner, Smith's no saving it, and we lose 4-3. I mean, it was one of those games.
Yeah. Ian, what do you think? Is it personnel or is it system that's causing the defensive woes?
It's our tactics. I mean, basically, everybody knew how United would play, including us. So we knew that they'd be playing at least three up front. Numerous times they had four attacking in the box, and they did that throughout, even 4 or 5. You know, obviously, as we saw, Nicky's not a defender, so Nicky Cadden's not a defender. But I agree with John. It's a balance there, in my view. I mean, Saturday was such a letdown. It really was. It's a hellish way to celebrate 150th anniversary. I mean, the shirts were great. I mean, thank God we didn't get beat, or we wouldn't have seen the shirts again. But as John said, our performances against Kelly, St Mirren, Dundee, Livingston, United, they're just not been good enough. And my concern is it's our finishing that's letting us down. So I'm very pleased to see that Dean Cleland's been recalled today from loan. You know, but you just need a bit of excitement, because it was a great crowd, but it was such poor entertainment. I think many might not be back. But if you look at our 27 shots at goal, we had 11 on target and 3 goals. And United had 3 goals from 13 shots, half the number of shots that we had. So they took their chances. And in the first half, John mentioned free kick there, but the 3 kicks in the first half, McGrath was like 3 feet over the bar. Nicky Cadden was wide and too high, and then the third was too wide and too high. We couldn't even hit the target with a free kick. I mean, that's ridiculous. And obviously, there was twice Boyle, I think it was, didn't even attempt to get on the end of a Nicky Cadden cross, and obviously Boyle did that brilliant. So Boyle did that. He was put through by Bowie with a great flick, and he shot straight at the keeper. So. But I mean, they're. I mean, obviously, Lucas Stevenson, he's class. He's absolute class, and he's better than anyone we had on the pitch. He's just terrific player, and you can see why Liverpool are want to hold on. Well, they've extended his contract. I think it's quite long now, but their first goal, obviously, was. It was just Nicky's just he shouldn't have been there, basically. Jordan Abita's far better at him than defending, obviously, and we had 7 players up for the second goal they scored, and Luca at the back post for the corner. That was hilarious. That was obviously a planned move. And we're being embarrassing that Jim Goodwin has actually outthought our coaches tactically. And it was obvious that Lucas Stevenson was at the back post on his own from their corner. It was obviously a planned move. And everyone knows how to play against us because we always play the same way, side to side and out wide. Bowie is back to goal against the target man, falling his arse all the time. And everything's really slow. It's all two touch. Although it is encouraging a couple of times that Levitt and linked up well with McGrath, but there's not enough running off the ball. There's no wall passes. There's no one touch, and so funnily enough, Mulligan and Bowie are running forward. Actually, it actually caused problems. They did it twice, but it's funny because so David Gray, if you remember, at the start of the season, David Gray said he would play differently against different teams and he would use different players, and we're not. And we're not using the skills that our players have. And so I think that, Levitt was having to go back all the time to pick up the ball from right at the back because Mulligan and McGrath weren't finding any space. So it was just, tactically, we were rubbish. And they were, I don't think we can blame the players. I think the coaches got it completely wrong. So I think we got it wrong. But to me, we have to finish better. We have to, and if that's going to be Dean Cleland coming in with Bowie, then I'd be ecstatic.
I have to say, all I want to say for is you're an awfully hard man to entertain. You just there's a rubbish game for entertainment, and then talk about 40 shots on goal between the two teams, 6 goals, we've got a red card. That is bollocks. Awfully hard man.
It's not my entertainment. I mean, the most entertaining thing for me on Saturday, and I think I mentioned this previously, was the fact that Joe Capaldi sent me to the bar in the Hibs club, although I had to wait 25 minutes to get served. Joe sent me with a 10 note. Here's a tenner, go and get yourself a pint. Okay, and I got there and I handed over a note and she gave it right back to me. Joe had given me a €10 note.
Well done, Joe.
He'd given me a €10 note.
Sorry about that, yes. Again, your mistake.
Stephen, I'll bring you in next. What do you put it down to then? I mean, if we step with for the specifics of the game, what's going wrong with Hibs' defence this season?
Yeah, there's a lot of accurate points being made already. I think we're verging very close back to the days recently where it doesn't take a lot of chances to concede. I remember a game away to Hamilton where they had one shot on goal, one shot on target from that one shot, and there was a 1-1 draw under Heckingbottom. We just concede far too many goals from chances created against us. I think the Caddens are especially weak defensively. I said a few weeks ago, if you can get a team with a Beta and Cadden in it, I think that's a stronger defensive unit than Iredale. Iredale has been way off it this season, and I'm really disappointed that he's been so off it this season. I think the time's right now for Smith to drop out. He gives me about as much confidence as a wet fart just now. I know he makes several saves in games, but that second goal was embarrassing. The dive for the first goal was embarrassing. There's nothing he can do about the third goal. It's an absolute outstanding finish. But there's question marks over the first two goals, and there's been several mistakes over the course of the season as well. I think Salinger was probably always going to start on Saturday anyway, with it being a cup game. Obviously, it wasn't really testing much against Livingston. Depending on how he does on Saturday, I would start with Salinger the following week against. In fact, no, Falkirk the midweek, haven't we, before we play Celtic away? I think Salinger has to start Saturday and then Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever it is against Falkirk. Smith just doesn't give me any confidence at all. I think Ian made a very good point about we're failing to convert a lot of the chances as well. The Kilmarnock game should have been out of sight. The St Mirren game should have been out of sight before we've conceded from, certainly the St Mirren game, one of the first major attacks in the game. I just think the balance right now is a wee bit off. We've got players not quite playing at the level they were playing at last season. And Ian's point as well about David Gray not changing it to play certain teams, that's becoming pertinently obvious that we are very similar in certain games. And I just think there's just something missing. I don't know if it's the hangover of not making Europe. There's just something missing just now, and I can't quite put my finger on what it is, Matty, to be quite honest.
Is there any mitigation for the fact that Gray said he had 7 first-team players to work with in training because everybody was away on international duties? Is that any mitigation for the sort of maybe like a lack of cohesion on the pitch?
Some, possibly, because you don't know what the players are doing at their different international camps. Some might be far more professional than others. I can't imagine. Actually, I've seen a video on X or Twitter today with DR Congo fans ripping apart a stadium after they got beaten penalties, I think, against somebody.
Decent.
You know, if you're the player of if you're Rocky in that DR Congo dressing room and the police are telling you to get out, I can't imagine your head's in the best space and you've maybe came back a wee bit distracted. I don't know what's going on at the respective international camps over the last couple of weeks, but I can't imagine it's easy not having the players working on what you want to work on. They're technically running behind when they come back, but I suppose the argument is the professional players, I would imagine they'll be getting messages from the coaching staff when they're away, and potentially to work on things. They're obviously working with international players, which, whatever way you spin it, is surely got to make them better players as well. But, you know, big English teams, big Italian teams, they deal with probably even less than that in their squads, and they can come back with firing all cylinders. Look at Man City on Sunday, lost probably 3/4 of their squad to international break, and absolutely wiped the floor with Man United, who albeit are pretty dire, to be honest. But I think there's some mitigation there, but probably not enough to justify how off it a lot of the players were on Saturday.
Jeff, I'll bring you in next. The defence obviously is the first area of the team that folk look at when you're conceding chances. But there's a lot goes on before it gets to the defence that can cause problems. Do we have issues in midfield, or are the attackers not pressing enough? Where's it going wrong?
I'm a wee bit conflicted. Midfield's definitely a problem. We're not getting the best out of some really good players. Now, whether that's the system or the players just haven't found their feet yet, it could be a bit of both. But the two ways looking at it, Saturday could have been just everybody. Well, I say everybody. A lot of the players have one of those 4 or 5 out of 10 performances, and just were never really at it. Mulligan was the poorest I've seen him. McGrath got man of the match, but it was one of those. I think somebody said on one of the pods it could have gone to anybody because there was nobody outstanding on Saturday. But the midfield definitely. I said it on one of the chats that we've got the ingredients. We just haven't found the right recipe yet for midfield. Now, if we're going to be winning games 3-2, 4-3, that's fine. But it's not happened yet. You know, Lennon got away with it because it was exciting, but it was, it was a bit of a bomb scare at the back. Somebody said that Gray doesn't change it. Well, they didn't change it last year when we were on the 17-game unbeaten run. Once he found his feet. So do we panic and make wholesale changes? Because players who we relied on last year are out of form at the moment. Ardale being the obvious one in the back line is just... I like Jack, and he was nearly player of the season last year. So form is temporary, class is permanent. So give him a rest and put Obita there. I think that is the obvious one. And then that leaves... unfortunately, that only leaves Nicky Cadden at left wing back. So midfield, yeah, it's a problem. But I think I was at the game. I've not watched any replays, but my impression sitting in the stand was every time they went forward, they seemed to have an extra man in midfield at the very least. Sometimes seemed to have more of that. The big number 8 was everywhere, and we didn't seem to stick anyone on him or the two in midfield were chasing their tail. McGrath was coming back to help. Chrissy Cadden has been off it. If we class the midfield as a 3 and the 2 wing backs, or just the 3, what would you say?
I have a 3 and the 2 wing backs. I think. I mean,
yes, we should have 5 in midfield basically, which should give us plenty of bodies there. But it never seemed that way. Now, I would start with some serious legs in midfield on Saturday, and maybe be a little less gung-ho going forward until we get we've established ourselves in the game. Chaiwa, Barlas looked okay. Whether he's fit enough or ready enough to start against Rangers, I don't know. Mulligan at right wing back. If we don't play Obita at left side of mid defence, play him at left wing back, and McGrath, and then 2 up front. But just get some more solidity in the midfield. It's clearly we're blaming the defence, but they were just pouring through the midfield on Saturday. And your defenders, it was scary every time they went forward, especially in the second half. It was like, oh dear,
Yeah. Well, Callum, we'll bring you in, and it's always like a negative perspective on the game, but it was like it wasn't all negative. For all we conceded chances, we created plenty going the other way. And what would you think? Is the trade-off worth it?
Because it's no part of this team, and I don't think Gray's trying to go all out attack. I think Lennon did that by design, whereas we're not. We're just being a bit shite now. My takeaway from the game was, if you're going into a game where you've got McGrath, Mulligan, and Levitt in midfield, they should go up against anybody. But as Jeff just mentioned, that big number 8 strolled it for them. They beat us in a midfield battle with one less player. Too many players were off it. I think Boyle found Bowie once with a pass. I don't know if the new strip confused him, but he was miles off it. Hoylett came on, miles off it. It was so strange to see like Mulligan and McGrath struggle as much as they did. But then on the flip side of that, we still had 27 shots on goal. So there is something that's working. Even in the goals we conceded, I think their third one, it wasn't like Cadden was caught half out the park. He was actually tucked in, and I don't know if that's just a lack of defensive experience or a lack of kind of instruction side of the park. He was back defender. He just wasn't in the right position. So I think we really struggle not having this. I think what is it they call it nowadays, a double pivot where you've got the two kind of sixes, which Levitt and Trantis were last season. Mulligan and McGrath don't play that, and I think that's where we're really struggling just now, because I was kind of watching when during periods in the first half when the game was flat, Levitt will always drop back and drop deep, but he'll never ever be within 5 or 10 yards of midfielder, one of their midfielders, and I think that's where it looked like they always had the extra man or the extra attacker. It's just not his game. He's, as Jeff mentioned, they had a 17-game run last season. If Levitt and Chantis weren't playing, Mariah Welsh came in, but he wasn't asked to do anything any differently. Whereas now we're putting in Mulligan and McGrath, and we're expecting them to play like a different role. And even when we had the ball, there was no one near Boyle or Bowie. And then what happened is we start going long to Bowie, and it just didn't work because I'm not what to put blame on the ref, but he was fucking rotten. The inconsistency. There was points where the defender had 2 arms around Bowie and gripping onto his own arms, pulling him down and stuff. He wasn't giving it. Hoylett turned his man in the second half, and there were actually 2 hands on his body. And where I sit in the east, he pushed him clean off the park, and it was play on. And 30 seconds later, they got a foul for something even less than that. I came out the game a wee bit earlier, jumped in the car, and Pat Nevin was raving about how it was one of the best 3-3s he's ever seen, and all this kind of stuff. And the referee let the game flow, and because you're in that, and you're talking about enjoying entertainment, like you didn't enjoy it when you're sitting there knowing that you should be winning, should be putting on a show, and kind of different kind of aspect. But I thought, like, I love Pat Nevin, but I thought, go and shut the fuck up, because Nay Hibby's going to come out of there having enjoyed the fact that the referee tried to let the game flow. So I think too many players were off it. Somebody mentioned there about the kind of international break, but there was enough there to kind of know what was expected, and the occasion itself, like when that roar came up when they took off their tracky tops and stuff, that should have lifted everybody, but for whatever reason it just didn't really work for us on Saturday.
Aye, John, you get your hand up.
Yeah, can we talk about Boyle?
Yeah,
because a couple of weeks ago I had to come on and say I was wrong about him. But certainly based on what we saw on Saturday, there seems to be a Boyle who turns up for the big games. And when it's a more routine game, his level goes down 10-15%. I don't know whether that's fair. I mean, I don't know what travelling he's done. Would I drop him for Saturday? Probably not, because it's Ibrox and it'll pick him up, and he scored 2 goals there. Or he scored a goal the last time we were there. But that's part of the problem. Hoylett, if you go to the highlights, nearly scores 2 and nearly sets one up. But they were his 3 highlights in the sort of 40 minutes he was on the pitch. The number of times that he didn't either drop for a ball when it was passed to him and he just let it get intercepted, couldn't find a teammate, couldn't get his control right. There were lots of problems like that. But there was the referee, but we were still creating. Mm-hmm. I mean, the challenge for me, though, is the players getting up to that peak, and I think Boyle encompasses that. So, I mean, it's not a diggy, and you were quite right with what you said the other week, but that's him drop back down to the stage where we can now question whether is he the long term, and is Clegy going to be in that role full time by the time we get to December.
Well, Boyle was dropped for a period last season. It's not. It wouldn't be unheard of for him to to kind of drop out the team. So you said, John, you would probably pick him for Saturday because he's previous at Ibrox. Do we have this was a talking point that came up from people like sending them into us ahead of Sunday's episode about players getting picked on past glories, if you like. Is that an example of it?
I think it is, but it's trying to sit down and say that if you're sitting down trying to say what's the best team you can put out at Ibrox, and you've got a choice between Cleege, who could come on and do a sprowl for us in the last 15 minutes, or Boyle, who has done it before and just seems to get to the stage where that just makes his mouth water, those sort of games. And he's also not travelled and he's got a week at home.
Rangers play a ridiculously
It's
high
that
line as well, don't they?
He's not done enough to be dropped. He was brilliant in Warsaw. His performance out in Denmark was good. I mean, there's lots of good performances in there, but he was right to come off at the 53rd minute on Saturday.
Yeah. Jeff, you've got your hand up. I'll bring him.
Yeah, just I would play Boyle on Saturday against Rangers because it's Rangers and he tends to score against them for some reason, so yeah, but my point was being that the 3 goals we scored on Saturday, keeper punches one in the net.
Yep.
Defensive mistake forced by Mulligan, but still, from Dundee United's point of view, disastrous. We didn't really have to do a lot to score that goal, although Bowie did really well to finish it off.
Mm-hmm.
And the third goal, mine's gone.
Penalty.
Oh, the penalty, yeah, which, we may not have got. We didn't actually create one of the goals we scored. We created chances, but the goals we got were not through our fantastic play, if you like. That was one thing I came away from the game thinking, well, Dundee United scored 3 goals where, yeah, we made some boo-boos, but they created them, good balls into the box. We didn't. So I would certainly, I just want to raise that point of just a wee concern, but I'd certainly play Boyle on Saturday.
Okay, Joe.
Just because it's Rangers.
Joe, what about you? What would you do? Would you go with Boyle or Cleege or Yuan or even on Saturday?
Well, personally, I'd like to see our £1 million player Cleege because we've seen so little of him, but what we've seen has been very exciting, and he needs more than 20 minutes at the end of the game, in my view. I think it really all gets back to the midfield, though, because we've been overrunning games, and I think the fact that Chegwa's back, I think he could be our ball winner that we've missed in midfield, like the cruncher in midfield. I think, we don't have Triantis, and he used to break up a lot of attacks last season in our great run. We need somebody to break up attacks, and I think it looks like we've already got the man there to do it. It's just unfortunately he couldn't play at the weekend. So I think playing him there would make a huge difference. But given that the next 4 games are all away, and they're no easy games, especially Hearts away, Rangers away, Celtic away, given the personnel we've got, I would tend to go 4 at the back, with both Hanley and Rocky in the middle of that 4, Obita left back.
It's the right back. Who do you play right back?
Well,
We're not
you can play right back if you like. But basically, we're losing too many goals at the back. We need to do something about that, especially with 4 tough away games back to back to back to back.
Mm-hmm. Ian, bringing it back to Boyle and Ibrox on Saturday, what would you do?
No, I mean, Boyle's got to play. He has to play. As John said, I think he's inspired by playing there. I agree with Joe. We have to go to the back 4, and we've got to have a beater and Hanley and Rocky in the middle. I think the main thing is that we get the tactics right. Again, I mean, to me, the reason why a lot of the disconnects happened wasn't down to the individual player performances. It was because, it was Callum correctly said that if you go back and look at it, you'll see the Levitt having to go back to pick up the ball from Rocky, and then he looks ahead of him and he's got no out ball. So McGrath's not there, and Mulligan's not there. And again, he has to go to the side as he always do. So we have to create more options for us to attack. And the way to do that is to be ready to play the ball through the middle. I can't remember how big Ibrox is. I think it's a bigger pitch than Easter Road, but there's certainly a space at Ibrox, and certainly when we've done well in the past there, it's been because we're running at them. And people have to take risks and do diving headers, and even Bowie's diving header was crap. You know, it was rubbish. But we have to be ready to get on the ball, the end of balls from like the likes of Nicky Cadden. So we have to attack them, but we have to, I think, start with 4 at the back.
Okay, I'm just going to get some comments from YouTube, and then Stephen, I'll come to you, and we're going to get some thoughts on a midfield pairing for the centre too. So Kenny said, even though Hanley, Chaiwa and Cleege have to start, Sandy said Hanley's experience could be vital. Much as I love Nadan, Abita is our best option at wing back at the moment. May said Abita and Nadan be fab that side together. Iredale has been shocking so far. Pod said we must go back to 3-5-2 with McGrath in the middle of the park rather than floating out to the left. That provides cover for whoever is in the pivot behind him. Kenny said what annoyed me on Saturday was we had 4 free kicks 10 or 15 yards into the United half and the ball ended up with our keeper. Let's put it into the box and attack it. Kieran made the point that says teams know how to set up against us now. Before we were getting 45% of the ball right at the back, 1-3-1. Now teams are sitting off us, letting us have 60% of the ball and hitting us on the counter. And me said, Kieran, I don't think Rangers will let us have the ball. Sandy says Rangers are a wounded animal we have to defend at our 100% best to beat them, which I believe we will. And me says, can't see it. Brussel Martin loves to keep the ball. There's been some tremendous nicknames for what was it, Terry Vegetables and Neil Cornick and Brussel Martin, etc. Tremendous stuff. Stephen, who's the midfield two for Saturday? Who would you select?
I've been pondering this all week, and I would personally, certainly a bit risky, I'd go with a 4-5-1 that can convert to a 4-3-3. I do agree with the majority of the panel that I do think we need to go back to a 4. We really, really do. And if we can get the Hanley that played in Copenhagen, 13 days ago, he'll be rock solid next to Rocky, who is fast becoming one of the best defenders in the league. So I do think we need to go to a back 4. I'm not entirely sure we have the personnel to play a 4-5-1/4-3-3. But in terms of if we go with a central pairing in midfield, I would be inclined to go with Chaiwa and Levitt. I think sadly the time's come for Chris Cadden to take a seat on the bench and get Mulligan out there. Even though I think Mulligan, I would love to play Mulligan in the middle, but the fact that he's so versatile and can play it right, I think Cadden's not done enough to warrant starting. So I would probably go with Chaiwa and Levitt. They are kind of similar. So there is an option to maybe have McGrath in there potentially. If you want to put a bit more of an attacking spin on it, maybe play them almost at the bottom top of a diamond. But that would be my 2 if we were going with a centre pairing, Matty.
Okay, cheers. Callum, we had a chance to see Barlaser for the last part of the game on Saturday evening. Do you think he did enough to come into consideration for a start?
I think you could see what he's going to offer. I was actually quite surprised with the size of him. He's quite a physical build a similar build to Chiantis, I would say. But you could definitely see what he's all about. So it'll be interesting to see if he does come in on Saturday. But yeah, this midfield is a bit of a quandary just now because obviously he was kind of sold to us as the number 6 we're looking for, and he signed and he's meant to be this dynamic guy that likes to get forward and create chances. So how he's going to figure that midfield out, I don't know. There's been a lot of talk about Chaiwa can play here and play there. But I would go against what most folk have said. I'd stick with a 3 because I think going to a 4, you're then having to decide if does Rocky play on the left, do we drop Iredale, do we bring in Hora in who lacks pace and things. I think you're a bit more kind of solid with that 3, and it's what we're used to. I think it'd be too much of a change, especially going to Ibrox.
And what about the goalkeeper? This was the other talking point of the weekend. So, Stephen, you'd already mentioned it. Callum, what would you be doing? Has Smith got enough credit in the bank to keep his place, or is it time for a change?
I think he's playing like a keeper who's under pressure, and it's almost like he's as moronic as this sound. He's trying to play like he's not under pressure, but he's coming charging at the box. I think Colin mentioned it the other day in the podcast as well. Like a header he just about got onto. I've just moved my seats further down to the front of the east, and I've put it in the chat. Actually, there was twice the ball got played over the top, and he had a 15-yard pass into Smith, and Smith didn't open his mouth once, and it happened twice in quite quick succession. He just didn't speak, and all that happens is Ardale's thumping it back over his head, and it's coming straight back. Appreciate the kind of their second goal. You could put that to Smith, but also the defence just went missing. The fact that they had two players clean through, I don't think you put that down to him necessarily. But given the kind of the sort of mistakes he made against Kilmarnock and things like that, and in the European tie, he's certainly looking like he's playing under a bit of pressure. And I think, as Stephen said, I think Salinger was due to play on Saturday anyway. But I think this time it's his chance to take a claim, because he's going to be a lot busier than what he was at Almondvale, or the Spaghetti Hard, or whatever the fuck they call it these days.
It definitely makes a difference. John, where do you stand on the goalkeeper situation?
When Salinger starts on Saturday, I think it's always going to be. I think it's about man management. It's about two goalies that, on the face of it, probably aren't a million miles apart in terms of how good they can be. When he came in the summer, I could understand why Smith kept the gloves. I mean, bit of credit in the bank from last season in terms of how he'd played. I think if it was Salinger sitting, I would be slightly disappointed that I've not had a chance up to now. But it depends. The little that we saw of him at Livingston, his distribution seemed fine. He seemed to catch stuff. But he's not played in that high tempo environment. Again, Rotvice Essen was a game that was a friendly. We're not going to take anything out of that. That's the only time I think we've seen him. So yeah, I'm happy he starts. Good pedigree, big tall keeper, seems to have distribution, and see how it goes.
There's a very serious
I would be
photograph
tempted to
on
play him again at Falkirk.
Right.
I would be tempted that he then takes the gloves to Falkirk. Because there's a bit of me also wondering sometimes it's about taking goalies out of the limelight before there is that catastrophic mistake. But it's how does he communicate well with his defence? That's the training pitch stuff that we don't see.
Yeah.
I mean, my instinct, I'm working on the basis there that him, Rocky, and whoever's beside Rocky, I mean, can talk to each other completely, but there was nothing at Livingston that suggested that they couldn't.
Okay, Ian, what were you? What do you think of the goalkeeper?
I think David Gray got it right to Spudge, as he calls him, kept us in the game. Iredale and Nicky Cadden both had goal-saving tackles, especially Iredale's one. But Smith's, especially his two saves with his feet, I think they were tremendous saves. So I think if we're going to bugger about with the team, I think the last thing we want to do is change the keeper at the same time. So I think...
Do you not think those are just saves that he's making within his arc? I mean, effectively, a goalie goes out, gets trained to take up a position, and hits him. The one high to his left-hand side is a good save, but the one at the end, the guy misses. I mean, anything above 3 foot off the ground, and that's in.
Yeah, I agree with you. Agree. But obviously, you spread yourself, and I think David Gray was right. He saved us. He saved us, and I think, to use Matty's phrase, he's got enough credit in the bank. I wouldn't be changing the keeper. I think I would agree, probably change him for the Falkirk game on Tuesday.
Jeff, what about you?
I'd change the keeper. He's our cup keeper. I'll say that. Smith could have given. He can see the play in front of him, and a couple of times he starts to come and he stops. And I've noticed it in loads of games where it's cost us possession, and in some games it's cost us goals. Last season against Celtic, where we won, the goal they scored was down to him. You know, he was indecisive at the post. Even the second one, which they was correctly chalked off because the ball was about 3 feet over the line. He could have done better with that one. So it's just little things. I watched the defence, and they just want a shout. Somebody mentioned he doesn't shout. For somebody who's confident, a good lad and what have you. When Nicky Cadden lets the guy get to the back post, Smith should be screaming out. Looking in front and saying, "Cads," he's got the time to do it. So I'd definitely give Salinger a chance. I think my opinion has always been of Smith is that he's a really good number 2. He's been forced into a number 1 spot and has done remarkably well. Made some great saves. The saves he made on Saturday, I had this discussion with can't remember who, but in my opinion, the saves that most keepers should make. There was nothing outstanding. Like, I think bloody, like a Marciano save or so. I don't think he's done enough to keep the jersey at the moment. But somebody also mentioned disruption. If we're going to drop Ardale or bring Hanley in, and we're going to put a new keeper in, luckily we don't have to make that decision. But if I was making the decision, taking personalities out of it, Salinger gets the gloves, and also Hanley plays.
I think it is a really good point about the number of changes you make. We used to talk about it with Lee Johnson, who would panic and change everything, match to match. And I think the one area of the pitch that you try to get consistency as much as possible is your back line, including the goalkeeper. I think it's like last resort, isn't it, when you change there? Ian, you get your hand up, and once I've got you, I'll come to you, Joe, and get your thoughts on the goalkeeper. It
was just talking about shouting to people, and if you like, if you watch the Lucas Stevenson goal at the back post, where he the second time he outsmarted Nicky Catton, but the one he scores at the back post, if you look at that, the build up to it, if you look, none of the Hibs players are actually looking at their opposite numbers. They're all looking at the ball, and the only Hibs player that's looking at anybody is Dylan Levitt. So Dylan Levitt's coming back and looking to the right. He looks twice, and he actually sees the guy. He's too far away, but he sees the guy who he's obviously going to cover. But then you can see that he sees Lucas Stevenson, but it's just too late. And it's really funny. That's such a basic skill that football players have to be able to observe instead of just staring at the ball.
Yeah. Joe, okay, goalkeeper. Oh, can't hear you, Joe.
Hello?
There we go. Now? Yes, you can.
Yeah. I think Jeff summed up pretty well when he said that Smith comes out 2 or 3 times and then hesitates. I think that's partly a lack of confidence. But the other thing about bringing Salinger in, he's got an extra 4 inches. That does make a difference. So I think he comes with a very good pedigree. A very good pedigree. So I think it would be worthwhile starting him, in my view.
Mm-hmm. On YouTube, Jack said these guys did well for him last season. To be fair, I just think we brought in better quality and should start them. Jay and Sandy said Smudger Smith is good now and a proven goalie. If Sir David Gray thought Salinger was better, he'd have seen him on the training field and would have picked him already. Pod said Salinger will likely make the saves Smith makes, but I doubt he'll make the mistakes Smith makes. Also Smith seems to make the defence nervous. And then me mentioned the wing backs. My worry is our wing backs against Gasman, they call him. I don't know who Gasman is, but the wing backs, definitely Chris Cadden's right hand side of the pitch has been an area that's been sort of targeted, I think, by teams all season. Ian, your hand up. You want to make a point on that?
Yeah, sorry. It's just the fact that I don't know if people noticed, but the defence, for the first time in my memory for a long time, were actually blaming each other. That's the first time I've seen them do that. So, exasperatingly shouting at why haven't you covered them? I find that a wee bit worrying.
Callum, what are your thoughts on the wing backs?
I think there's a consensus now that Cadden is Chris Cadden has kind of been struggling, or his form certainly did. There's this argument over whether you play Obita, who's more defensive minded, and Nicky Cadden offers you the attacking threat. I think Gasman's the boy Gassama, who's probably been their best player. Right. And they've got the Marvel superhero on the other side, Ant-Man.
Aye, that's not fair, is it?
Aye, so they seem to be their better players, and that is a concern because we've certainly been weak in those areas. I don't know what it's come down to, if it's just a lack of that kind of solidity in midfield or whatever, but it's certainly a problem for us at the moment, and it probably is a concern for me, is that boy is pretty decent and he's scored a number of goals so far.
Stephen, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think it's now becoming quite apparent that the transfer window needed to include an out-and-out right winger or somebody that plays on the right, right now Cadden doesn't have a huge amount of competition for that place, and he's getting included in matchday squads when his form probably doesn't merit it, to be quite honest. So I definitely think there's an error there in not getting in somebody that is specifically specialist to that position, which is why potentially Mulligan's the option to play it right, which arguably takes him out of the middle where he could be pretty effective as well. But Cadden had a knock at the start of the season, didn't he? So he didn't start the season playing, and there was obviously all the calls for him to come in. I actually think Obita in Nicky Cadden's absence really raised his game, and I actually think it's a bit unfortunate that Obita's out the squad, or he certainly didn't start on Saturday. So it is a tough one. It is a real tough one, Matty. I would be inclined to go with Obita ahead of Iredale and still keep Cadden in that team to try and make that 4-5-1, 4-3-3 that I mentioned earlier. And I think due to probably the fear of playing O'Hora, who's technically a centre-back at right-back, and maybe be inclined to stick Cadden at right-back in a back four and then go with Mulligan in that right-hand side position. Potentially, it's a toss-a coin between O'Hora and Cadden for right-back on Saturday, in my opinion, at the moment. But there is definitely I think it's a problem that's starting to get highlighted, that the lack of getting an out-and-out right-sided player in the transfer window might come back and bite us in the arse as the season progresses.
John, what do you think of the... I mean, we definitely have seen teams targeting our right-hand side, haven't they?
I think so. I think we've probably ended up with two halfway men, in the sense that we've got Mulligan and Chris Cadden who can play on that right side of defence. And our right back is Kanaya Megwa, who again is a bit of an in-between player, but in terms of a right centre back and a right wing back, and we don't have a right back. If that all makes sense, because there's not too many right backs in there. We don't have a Jordan Obita that we can just put in at right back and play a flat back four. And I think that's why we're playing the three. You're almost at a stage where you'd be sticking O'Hora out there. I don't know if the young guy who's arrived, whether he's a right side and has got that in him. But again, if he is, he's a centre back we put onto the right side of the pitch. And anybody who's played centre back doesn't want to be at full back position, because you're playing against people that are too fast and too tricky.
Yeah, just think Will Fish at Tynecastle.
Yeah.
Well,
Jeff, on that, right? I mean, we're talking about sort of wholesale changes to the system, potentially changes to the personnel. We are third in the table with a game in hand, I think. We're still in the cup. Going to Ibrox. We made a good fist in Europe, although not quite getting there. Is there a risk of sort of throwing the baby out with the bathwater here?
Yes, yeah, definitely. But some things are becoming apparent as the season goes on. I don't want to pick out Smith in particular, but just use him as an example. I think it's obvious that the keeper needs changing. Has done for a game or two, but we're getting away with it because we've got the highest XG in the division, but we're not scoring the goals that the XG says. If we score those early goals, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Everything would be hunky-dory, because we, be sitting up there with the league winners from across the city.
So, and on that point, then, are the forwards getting off lightly here? Then, if we're talking about having the highest XG in the league, and we're talking about changing the goalkeeper and the fullbacks or the wing backs.
Yeah, I think it's the early chances that haven't killed us, but you score the early goal. The other team's got to change. If they've come to park the bus, whatever, you get them. So in every game, we've missed an early chance that I can think of, apart from maybe Livingston, which didn't really matter anyway. But you think about Kilmarnock, we scored 2 goals, but we should have scored more before they got their first goal. St Mirren, we had the early chance. I can't remember who had it, but definitely we had Junior.
Hoylett hit the bar.
It was actually clever what he did. He was just, I could see what he was trying to do. Hit it early, catch the keeper off guard, no chance, but he just mishit it. On Saturday, it was Boyle. Boyle, what a team, just crash it. If the keeper saves it, fucking who cares, But don't just chip it into his hands. I don't know. He caught in 2 minds. So, what was the question, Matty? Forwards getting off lightly? No, I'm loath to slag the forwards, but it's been different people missing the early chances.
Okay.
And Bowie has put a power of work in, scored some goals. Boyle scored goals. Clegy scored goals. The one that Rocky claimed against St Mirren, that was Clegy's goal, as far as I was concerned. So yeah, no, I think it's the system and the midfield. The midfield and some players being out of form. So I don't want to make too many changes, but I just think you can't ignore some of the things that are playing at the moment, plainly not working.
Okay, I've got hands up from Joe and for Callum. So Joe, I'll come to you first, and then Callum will come to you.
I think 4 things stand out. I think we need to start with Salinger in goal, Hanley in the middle of our back three. We need to really tighten up that defence. I think Clegy has to start up front. He's only had bit pieces of games to play in, and he scored 2 goals in 3 starts or some damn thing where he's had half a game or a quarter of a game. I'm really excited by him. Last year I got really excited about Dylan Levitt, as you all know. This year, Cleagy's my man. We need to start him. Sorry, Boyle.
Okay. Callum?
I think if there's ever a player that needed a run of games, it's Clegy. But then I think during the international break, he's away playing. I think he played 90 minutes in both games.
I did.
And then I think there's another international break in 4 weeks. And then we've got the potential of losing, I think, at least 3 of the guys to the African Cup of Nations and stuff. So that concerns me. But the guy needs minutes, and you can see when he comes, even on Saturday, you can see what he brings. I think, obviously, Boy's only got this season to go, and I do think Cleach will be seen as his long-term replacement. But it does concern me that he's not going to get the minutes that he needs to get his form up, just with how unsettled things are with the internationals, etc.
It's a funny thing when you signings, like if they didn't get a game right away, it seems to take them ages to get into the team. But definitely does with us. We've seen it with a few players over the years. Callum, looking ahead to Saturday coming, then we've got Rangers. What do we need to do to win that game, aside from obvious score more goals than them?
I feel like I've said this a few times, but we need to score first, because they are. I think somebody referred to them as a winded animal. They are, and those horrible bastards, they'll get right in their backs if we start putting them under pressure. And we saw what they did to them at the weekend. So I think if we can score first and stay fairly solid, we could probably do what we did last year and comfortable beat them, to be honest.
Okay, Joe, what do you think we need to do on Saturday to win?
I think we need to play 4 at the back, as I've said already. Don't forget, we're up against a wounded animal, and if we win on Saturday, that manager at Rangers is out. So they'll all be trying their best. Roaring crowd at Ibrox. I agree with what's just been said. If we get the first goal, that would be terribly important. But even assuming we don't, we just need to be really solid at the back. And I think playing Chegwa.
Jesus, Joe.
but anyway, Chegwa in midfield. But I think we need to put Clegy up front.
Okay,
and
John.
I think Hibs will win 2-1.
Right, John. What do we need to do on Saturday?
I think we need to understand when we were 2-0 down at Easter Road last year and we came back and won the rest of the game 3-1, taking out space out wide for a team that play 4-2-3-1 and look to get down the sides. We played a flat 3 in midfield there. Kwon, Campbell and Levitt. I think we've got upgrades on a couple of those this season.
Yeah.
So I think we've got the ability. I think there's it's finding a way to put pressure on them. I think it will be about being solid at the back, restricting their chances, but converting the XG that we create up the top of the pitch, because we'll make chances.
So all about conversion. Stephen, what do you think we need to do?
Just as an aside, Joe says stop the boats. I think, I definitely think I'm actually quite glad we're playing away from home, because our home form versus our away form this season, it's like night and day. Away from home, we seem to get the tactics, the selection, everything absolutely bang on. We seem to raise our game playing away from home as well. I don't know if there's maybe full crowds, the expectations, it's maybe quite hard for a lot of them to try and match that. But I think if we try and mirror the performance back in March, where we were under absolutely zero pressure against them, strolled at 2-0 in all honesty, if we can get a similar level of rigidity at the back, counter-attack efficiency. Score the first goal, absolutely. I've read a few things online that apparently they've sold less than 5,000 tickets, which I can't believe, considering my sister's partner, he gets deducted money for every game, even if he goes or not. So I think if we can score the first goal, that crowd will turn hostile. It's already going to be hostile. I believe they're actually arranging a march in front of the main stand at 4:30 before kick-off. So it's already going to be exceptionally hostile for the Rangers team. So if we can get the first goal, I'm very confident we'll win quite comfortably. I honestly do. I think they're such a poor, misbalanced team. They've got a couple of good players. Gassama is a good player. But other than that, Majovski doesn't look like the same player that was at Aberdeen in the first couple of games he's had. They are a very, very poor football team, and I think we can exploit that on Saturday.
Okay, Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, just keep the crowd quiet, make them turn, whether that is by just restricting them to long shots, whatever. Take our chances. We'll definitely get chances on Saturday, and take them. We've nothing to fear going there. My only concern is that it's a natural thing. You think at some point a Rangers going to come good. They're going to suddenly listen to whatever Russell Martin's trying to coach them, and it's actually going to work. I don't think it will. I think he's a dead man walking. But that's my only concern. Is I think we go there full of confidence. I've done that before at Ibrox and come on the wrong end of beating. I think just keep the crowd quiet. Let them get on their players' backs. They've not got the character to cope with the Ibrox crowd. They would probably rather have the game at Easter Road. A bit like us, we're probably better away from home at the moment. Not because of the crowd. I think just the tactics and the setup suit us. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just go for it. But sensibly.
Okay, and Ian, last one.
We need big game players. We need big game, players that want to play in big games. Smith, Mulligan, Rocky, Hanley, Abita, Levitt, Chaiwa, Balasar, Madden, Cleege and Boyle up front. We need leadership on the field, which we don't have because Martin Boyle's gone very quiet. We need a strong performance by the subs, and we need to keep the penalty takers on.
Okay, right. And what's the score going to be, Ian?
We're going to win in penalties, 4-3.
4-3. Jeff, the score?
2-1 Hibs.
Okay, Joe?
2-1 Hibs.
2-1 Hibs. Stephen?
2-0 Hibs.
John?
3-1 Hibs.
3-1 Hibs. Right. And Callum?
2-0 Hibs.
2-0 Hibs. Okay, right. We will wrap up there. Colin and John and I don't know if John's on tomorrow actually, but definitely Colin and I will be back with a preview show. Tomorrow we'll be on round about 4 o'clock, so watch out for that. And then get your talking points in Saturday night for the podcast on Sunday. We may have, we're waiting on confirmation, but we may have older Hibs fans will remember him, David Duff, coming on to talk about his book about the sale of Hibs. Or the potential sale of Hibs to Wallace Mercer, who obviously wanted to fucking obliterate us, the fat Tory bastard. So if you have anything you want to ask, join us live. We will be sort of fielding questions live to David. Colin and I are a bit young for it. I think we were just like sort of early in our early teens when that all happened. So the memory of it is a bit hazy. I've got the book to read. So whatever your views are, join us and we'll put the questions to David, assuming it goes ahead. But in the meantime, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you all next time.
Well, they trailed me down when I broke free. I drank all the whiskey in Tennessee. I don't drink water, no.